Welcome to another episode of Graft Under Watch, a special podcast brought to you by the National Prosecuting Authority, fighting corruption and organized crime. It's a podcast that focuses on commercial crimes and complex crimes, as well as, of course, crime including corruption and fraud. So we've been going through the various elements, the critical elements of the infrastructure that comes into play with the National Prosecuting Authority in fighting organized crime and corruption. And we continue to do exactly that. This time around, our theme is inside the Specialised Commercial Crimes Unit, SCCU, prosecuting economic crimes in the public interest. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, and I'm joined for episode 3 of Graft Under Watch by Advocate Nkebe Kanyane, who is the Special Director of Public Prosecutions responsible for the Specialised Commercial Crimes Unit, SCCU. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So let's start with the basics. I went through, just looked at how you are defined as a unit, what your mission and mandate is, but I want to hear it from you. What is the SCCU? What do you do? What is your mandate?
So the SCCU is a specialized unit within the National Prosecuting Authority. Our mandate is to prosecute complex commercial crime, and that, of course, also includes corruption. We work very closely with the DPCI, and they basically feed that dockets through to us. They have an intake criteria which matches ours. So we typically prosecute matters such as fraud, corruption, money laundering, cybercrime, that type of offences. Yeah, that's basically it.
What sets you apart from commercial crimes, mere unqualified commercial crimes, and specialized commercial crimes? What's the differentiation?
Yes, so we do the apex. So for a matter to come to the Specialized Commercial Crimes Unit, it needs to be complex. Mm-hmm. It needs to be complex. It needs to meet a certain threshold. So if it's a straightforward theft, it will be dealt with by the general prosecution. Yeah. So we only deal with the most complex and where the financial loss is substantial.
All right. So you're not one of the newer units within the NPA. You've been around for quite some time.
We've been around the block.
Yeah.
We've been around the block. So maybe just to give a bit of background in terms of where the SCCU comes from. It was established in 1999 as a pilot project, really. And it is a good example of a public-private partnership. It was a public-private partnership with Business Against Crime. There was an outcry about, that matters of commercial crime were not being dealt with properly. They're a bit daunting, in terms of the volumes and the complexity and the like. And so it started as a pilot project in Pretoria, and there was one court. It was piloted out, and because of the resounding success it had, it was then rolled out, and we boast 22 specialized commercial crimes courts all over the country. We've got units in the DPP's offices where we've got dedicated prosecutors that their job is only to deal with commercial crime.
So it sounds to me like synergies and complementarity with other law enforcement as well as the judiciary is key and critical in the work that you do. The DPCI, I imagine before the DPCI perhaps...
It was the commercial branch of the SAPS.
The commercial branch of the
yes.
And then the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court.
Yes.
Am I correct in assuming that there are synergies there?
Yes, there are synergies there. So in our Specialized Commercial Crimes Courts, we've got dedicated magistrates that they're assigned to those courts. So that's what they do. And there's advantages to that, because then you get the magistrate to actually understand the type of work, as opposed to when we didn't have the SCC courts, then you went to one court, move around different courts. So now we've got dedicated magistrates that only do commercial crime.
So give me an example of the complex cases that you handle. What are the typical features?
So procurement fraud is a big problem.
Yeah.
Procurement fraud in the public space is a big problem. And this is nationally, this is provincially, this is also in municipalities. So we typically deal with a big volume of our cases has to do with procurement fraud in the public space. And of course, once you speak about procurement fraud, then you know there's collusion with staff, SCM, CFOs, CEOs, and then you then get corruption. So a lot of our cases, it would be procurement fraud in the public space, and it would be corruption, and then money laundering.
But you're not limited to the private public space,
No.
public sector only. You also are supposed to straddle and do a lot of work as well around these complex crimes as they manifest in the private sector as well.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Cases like Steinhoff, for instance. So that's not that's not public procurement. That's not in the public space.
Yeah.
Cases such as that would come to us. Investment frauds, where members of the public are defrauded, where people are conducting the business of the bank. So it is definitely not confined to the public space.
I tried to look for landmark cases in which you were involved, and I saw that I was being overwhelmed because, as you say, you've been in existence for quite a number of years.
Yes.
What are some of the highlight ones that you could lift to the surface that exemplify the work that you do?
So the one that comes to mind is the land bank case. So, often we are criticized quite a bit by the public and the media that we only prosecute, unknown, ordinary people, and that we don't get to prosecute politicians. We don't prosecute, high-profile people. But in this case, the people who prosecuted is actually a senior member, a senior politician, somebody who was an MP. He was the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee in Agriculture. His co-accused was the man who was acting as the CEO of Land Bank and an attorney. So you can see all of these people are quite senior people that we prosecuted. They defrauded Agri BEE, which was a grant that was in Land Bank meant to support emerging farmers. And they defrauded, I think it was 6 million. I'll just have to check my notes.
Sure.
Yes, and that money, not a cent of that money was paid out. The grant money was paid out. People who did not meet the requirements, they post facto created the paperwork. That money was paid. It was spent in luxury. Cars were bought. That whole money was spent. And we got a very good sentence in that case. Mr. Mhlaloga was given a 15-year sentence for the fraud. He was given a 15 years for money laundering. Effectively, it was 20 years. And the case took long. It took long. The offenses were committed around 2007, 2008. When we got a conviction, it was 2018. It went. Sure. It wasn't without problems. There were many interlocutory applications in between.
Yes.
And we got that conviction. We got the sentence. He still appealed. They still appealed the conviction and sentence. So he was convicted at the High Court. He then appealed to the Supreme Court of Appeal. It was dismissed. He then went to try and petition the Constitutional Court. It didn't work. So I'm just demonstrating that the matter went all the way up, and the sentence was confirmed. Yeah. Yes. So. Yeah, that's just one of the cases.
Is that a typical feature of the kind of cases that you handle, that the accused, the litigants on the other side, are able to litigate almost ad infinitum?
That's actually one of our biggest challenges.
Yeah.
That's one of our biggest challenges. Typically,
so
our
like
cases.
Stalingrad
is the pain that we have in our cases. When our matters, so our methodology is that when we take cases to court, it's trial ready. So we guide investigations from the onset. We sit with the investigating officer. We create a case plan. We guide in terms of what evidence would need to prove the charges. By the time we enroll the matter, the state is ready to proceed. And if I tell you how long usually it takes typically from when we enroll and we are ready to proceed. So the other postponements you can understand. The accused needs to get an attorney. The accused needs to get copies of the docket. They need to familiarize themselves with the state's case. But we are ready to proceed. However, we get a lot of interlocutory applications in between that time and when we are ready to for the accused to plead. And even after they plead, we still get applications upon applications. And so that's one of the things that delays our matters. With the Mhlaloka case, the offense was committed 2007. We got a conviction in 2018. The accused is yet to start the sentence.
Yeah. So because you mentioned the Steinhoff matter, I imagine that's the one that's been the stick with which you've been beaten quite a bit. Questions being asked about, I remember a point before Mr. Marcus Uoste passed away,
yes.
Those questions being asked. When are we seeing prosecutions? Just talk to that a little bit, just in passing, about that case. To what extent did it typify or exemplify the cases that you deal with?
Well, I know that the greatest criticism with the Steinhoff case is that we didn't get to the main guy, because literally the week we're going to when we decided that we're going to now effect an arrest, he then committed suicide. But there's been other accused in that case who has pleaded guilty, found guilty, are serving a time in prison. So we have gotten the criticism about how we handled the case. However, the case is still ongoing. Unfortunately, we can't proceed when the accused is dead.
Yeah.
That's the end of the matter pertaining to that accused. But the prosecution in the Steinhoff matter still proceeds with the accused that are remaining.
But am I correct in assuming that your prosecutors, your team, needs to be people who are adept at the complexities? Because, for instance, Steinhoff had to do with the financial markets, and I imagine multiple jurisdictions as well that were being implicated in all of that. Do you need to be adept at proving crimes whose elements are quite complex?
That is so. You need people who are resilient. You need people who are meticulous, because typically you need somebody who will go through, with a fine-tooth comb through the evidence, which typically goes through volumes and volumes. In some of my matters, we're not even able to, print out the entire docket just because of the sheer volume. So you need somebody who will be able to cross-reference and remember that, in that document, this is what was referenced. So you need people who are very meticulous and committed as well. So
what's the role of forensic and digital evidence within the work of the SCCU, and how are prosecutors adapting to the changing nature of evidence?
We've had to adapt.
Yeah.
We really had to adapt. Many years ago, you'd remember, I'm sure you had a checkbook, Thulasizwe. We had checkbooks, we wrote checks, people wrote bad checks, right?
Yes.
So at the time, that was the type of cases we'd get. We had kite flying, where people wrote bad checks, bouncing from one account to the other. We don't have checks anymore. Checks are absolute. Now people are using virtual assets. So now we've had to, get around understanding how virtual assets work. People are paying people with cryptocurrency now. So you need to know who, you need to understand how the wallets work. So we've had to, and we're in the process of, trying to catch up also and get to a point where we understand how these things have evolved. Digital forensics, forensic investigations is part of what we need. In our tablets, in our phones, in our laptops, that's where the evidence is now.
Yeah.
Not so paper-based anymore. So over time, we've had to move from, searching and seizing physical documents to seizing digital, cell phones and computers. And so to get the digital evidence, we've had to move and get our hands around that.
Tell me about the collaboration that we touched upon a bit earlier on between the various law enforcement agencies. How's that working? Are you happy with the levels at which, the various elements on which you depend are operating? So your DPCI, for example, And I imagine that perhaps the DPCI itself having to rely in part on referrals from the Special Investigating Unit and other people. How does that pipeline work?
Okay, so yes, the DPCI is one of our main stakeholders. The bulk of our work that we get comes from them. We do get work from the commercial branch still, the SAPS. We then get SIU referrals. But even with SIU referrals, when we get SIU referrals, they still must then be investigated by the DPCI. We have a number of memorandums of understanding, MOUs, with some of our stakeholders that guides and helps us in navigating how we operate together. But we work very well with our stakeholders, especially ones in the law enforcement agencies. We can understand also that we need financial intelligence for our cases. The FIC is a big player in that space. Is one of our main stakeholders also in that regard, and other law enforcement agencies. So we do have good relations. We have in different ways. We've got task teams. Some are operational. Some are more managerial. So we've got different task teams that we have with the different law enforcement agencies. South African Revenue Services, for instance. So we have good relations that we navigate with our law enforcement agencies, including the SIU as well.
Does conviction rate matter as a measure of success? And I'll tell you why I'm asking. Do you use that as a measure of your success? There's a new report out from the Dollar Omar Institute, Dr. Jean Redpath, and I'll quote very quickly what is written there. It's a couple of days old. Public data shows that by 2023-24, the number of reports to SAPS of commercial crime exceeded 128,000. Unfortunately, at the same time, by 2023-24, the SCCUs of the NPA, who mainly bring cases to the Specialized Commercial Crimes Courts, recorded in the NPA annual report only 333 convictions in all 22 Specialized Commercial Crimes Court for that year. It's a figure, of course, it captures, the 128 captures other cases that may not necessarily have served with you. But that throughput through the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court, which is where you operate, does it matter as a measure of success?
So, conviction rate is one way of measuring success. Orange overalls is what people want to see, right? That's what Joe Public wants to see, that there's orange overalls, which means that people have been locked away. But there are many other ways of measuring success. Commercial crime, unlike violent crime, commercial crime is committed, corruption is committed to benefit people financially. So if you take away the assets, for instance, that's a big way you can measure success.
Yeah.
You take away the ill-gotten goods. So that's one way. Getting lengthy sentences. If you take people's liberty, you touch them on their studio, right? So having lengthy sentences is a way to measure success. And I can show you the figures, Thulasizwe, that in 2023-2024, the 40% of our corruption cases resulted in custodial sentences. That's not a small feat at all. To get 40% of those cases in orange overalls, I think that's success.
Yeah.
I think that's success. So lengthy custodial sentences is a way to measure success. However, that's not the only way. We do customer satisfaction with court services, where people go out. And you mentioned the Dula Omar reports. There's different reports.
Yeah.
If you read Stats SA, for instance, they quote, and I just want to check my numbers here. They quote that 43, I think, % of people were happy with how the cases were held in court, satisfaction.
Yeah.
The report that we commissioned showed that 73% were happy with how their cases. And these are not just people. These are victims of crime, people who've interacted with. So let's say might have interviewed you at home while you're sitting and you say, NPA is not working, right? But this survey, our survey, interviewed people who interacted with the criminal justice system. And they were happy, 73%. And of this survey, and 83, just want to check my numbers, 83 said that they would come back and testify. Over 80% said they would come back and testify. And so for me, that is how I would measure our success as well.
And I suppose, Advocate Kanyane, it's important to put the figure of that 40% that you mentioned within the context of not all your accused are natural persons that can be sentenced to a custodial sentence, right? So
some of the accused that we've convicted are people, are jurisdiction persons, so you can't send them to jail. Yes.
So that's what I wanted, just for clarity and for better understanding.
And in addition to Thulasizwe, you know, the type of the profile of the people who we prosecute are people who have financial means, deep pockets, who are able to fight the system. And so to get to that 40%, it's really not a small feat.
So let's talk about just conceptual issues. This whole idea that perhaps sometimes white-collar crime being seen as a victimless crime. What do you say? How do you ensure that these crimes are taken seriously and in the way that they're perceived by the public and in the way that your prosecution instills that message that says actually it's not a victimless crime?
It's certainly not a victimless crime. Because that money that has been stolen, defrauded, taken out, corrupt means, is money that would have served me and you. In Northern Cape, they don't have a mental hospital right now. After 470 million was spent, there's no mental hospital. That's not a victimless crime. The contractor was paid 70 million, is now liquidated. There's no hospital. That is not a victimless crime. I'm a taxpayer. I'm sure you're a taxpayer. That money that has been stolen was not only stolen, but it made sure that there isn't a mental hospital. So for me, that's not a victimless crime. When money that was meant for services at a hospital is looted in luxury, when it means that life-saving medication can't be bought, it means life-saving machinery can't be bought, that's not a victimless crime. And when the world looks at us with high levels of corruption and the investor confidence dips and goes down, we are victims. Because then we won't get foreign investment. That's not a victimless crime.
You also collaborate internationally, don't you, in dealing with some of the crimes that we are talking about. And I imagine things like cybercrime also come into the picture. The recent work that has been done by the country at various levels around, getting us off the Financial Action Task Force grey list. All of that, I imagine, talks to areas in which you specialize as a unit.
Yes. The Financial Action Task Force grey listing really, it made us to take a step back and say, what can we do better? Not as, as the NPA or whatever institution, but together. It really forced us to harness, collaboration, because the immediate outcomes that were there did not require just one entity to work on. So we really, and FATF wanted to see a value chain, right? So they wanted to see that financial intelligence is being received by the FIC from the various accountable institutions. Once received, that it's law enforcement access that. Once it's accessed, it's used in investigations. Once used in investigations, it's used in prosecutions. So now you see the value chain. So we needed to work together. We couldn't just say, well, financial intelligence must be received by the police and all of that. So it really forced us to collaborate better.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about how you fit in within the organization, the National Prosecuting Authority. how your work complements what the other units do. I've come to learn that each one has their specialization here, but it comes together as a whole at the end of the day.
Yes, so yeah, the NPA as an institution is responsible to investigate, or not to investigate, to prosecute from shoplifting to high treason, right? That's basically our mandate, to prosecute everything and everything in between. And certain crime types need specialization. And currently, the priority in the organization is really corruption and organized crime. And so our work as the SCCU is in the corruption space. And as I said earlier, that we were not born yesterday. We've been around. We've got courts well established. We've got prosecutors who've been at this game for over 20 years. So we fit in providing that specialization that is required for us to be able to deliver that specialized experience for this type of cases.
Speaking of prosecutors, what makes an SCCU prosecutor? What skills pool do you draw from? Yeah, is it the same as the other specialized units, and you're all scrambling, and the pool is not as rich as you would want it to be?
So once upon a time, Thulasizwe, the profile or the look of a commercial crime prosecutor looked very different, right? It had a certain look and feel to it. And a lot of people didn't like to work in that space. If you get a docket, a typical docket will be, you've seen a docket, a brown file, right? That would be a docket, and that would be the entirety of your evidence in other time crimes. But with our cases runs into, volumes of arch liver files, and that's just the beginning. There's other evidence. So you need somebody who's meticulous. You need somebody who's meticulous who can do that. What we've done over the years is that we've tried to so that there is a pool of prosecutors that can take over. Those prosecutors that I speak about with over 20 years, now they're coming to retirement, not so. So we need to be able to have people that can take over. So we've now introduced, through our aspirant programs and mentoring programs, so that we empower prosecutors coming into the stream, so that you don't first see a commercial crime docket when you're now a regional court prosecutor. So that later we can have a pool. So we try and systematically, bit by bit, introduce them to commercial crime, so that by the time they are seasoned prosecutors, that they're already into that space. And then we can have a pool to replace the ones going on retirement.
So there's a lot going on in the country as you and I are speaking. Various investigations, public inquiries, SIU is doing its thing in the Gauteng Department of Health. None of it, of course, well, I don't know, let me not say none. I imagine that much of it has not reached your desk. Is it giving you sleepless nights, given the volume of work that you can perhaps anticipate? Given also some of what we're hearing in commissions of inquiry, are you anticipating that actually as busy as you are now, it's about to get even busier?
Some are already in our space. Remember, I explained that we get involved right at the beginning. We use what we call prosecutor-guided investigation. So even before you get to a case, where the police are ready to hand it over to us for prosecution, we get involved. So they bring it to us for us to guide investigations. So some of the matters are already with us. We've been guiding the investigation. And when the time is ripe, when the investigations are complete, we will bring prosecution.
I don't even imagine you'd want to give a teaser of
No. No. Remember, I explained that we don't want to arrest or authorize arrest and then investigate. When we bring our matters to court, they are ripe and the state is ready for trial. So when the state is ready for trial,
we will know.
You will know, and you will remember this conversation.
Yeah. Tell me about your priorities at the SCCU right now and going forward, given where we are in the conversations we've been having, including these last few minutes. This sense by South Africans that this far and no further in terms of corruption, fraud, serious and complex commercial crimes. You get the sense that South Africans want to see the curve sort of making a turn and just turning around. So what priorities are you setting for yourself and the team?
So I know that all of us, we want prompt justice. Every complainant wants to have, their day in court and have it quickly. And I do appreciate, that we perhaps don't work as fast as people would like. And really, that's really what I want to see at the end of the day. I want us to have, get my team to a point where we're able to deliver prompt justice. Not cut corners, of course, but prompt justice. That the time it takes between when the offense is committed, when we take the matter to court, when we ultimately get a conviction and we get the orange overalls, that time is reduced. I would like to see that. And the things that we're putting in place in the unit is trying to get there. We're trying to leverage technology so that some of the things that can be automated, we use that to machines. Get tools, smart tools that can do that. So that what comes to me is things that actually just need me to apply my mind and do the decision making. Yeah. So
the human element.
The human element, yes, because some of the things you can't leave to machines to do.
Just in terms of the infrastructure, is your team located across the country, and are they overwhelmed? Are there jurisdictions within the country where it's just busier than other jurisdictions?
Yes. So the unit is in all the 10 divisions. So all the 9 provinces. Gauteng has 2 divisions. So all of the provinces, all the divisions, they have a specialized commercial crime unit. Some bigger than others because the dynamics are different, and some is just because they were more established earlier. So we've got some that are more resourced than others, and the divisions are different. Yeah, they're different, and they're different dynamics also. But I wouldn't say overwhelmed. One of the things that I like, or that that gives me hope, that makes me excited and makes me do what I do, is that we've got very committed people. Right, our regional heads in the divisions. These are the SCCU regional heads. The deputies that are there, the prosecutors that are there, the support staff. We've got people who are very dedicated to this. So I know that they face adversity. We've seen what's happened to prosecutors.
Yeah.
Prosecutors get killed for doing their jobs. But we have people who are committed, and that commitment drives them, to do what they do. Yeah. I want, and what I try to do as the head of the unit, is that I try to create an enabling environment for people to thrive. When you've got people, when you've created an enabling work environment, you'll get the best out of people, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah. So while you're talking about that, tell me about the work you are doing around. A couple of minutes ago, you talked about the profile of a commercial crimes prosecutor has changed. It's no longer what it used to be. What does that look like in terms of the work that you are putting behind it, around transformation, as well as the pipeline and development of a pipeline of a young legal talent that will then fit in and come into this space?
So you need to get somebody who keeps up with the law, right? So you have somebody who wants to read, keep up with the law. The law is changing rapidly. You need somebody who keeps up with the law. You need somebody who will keep up with technology. Because how we drafted our charge sheets 15 years ago is not how we draft our charge sheets now. So you need somebody who will be able to keep up with what's happening, keep up with the law, keep up what's happening with technology, and be driven.
And are you drafting them straight from the aspirant prosecutor program, or are you finding that some prosecutors are able to pivot from previous specializations, perhaps they used to specialize in, I don't know, sexual offenses, or in some instances, your murder and the likes. And basically, after a period of time, you identify that actually there are pathways through which we can help you pivot because we see value in you. We
want to introduce it earlier so that we can grow. You can grow the talent from there. I think most people decide quite early on where they would like to go. So if you've got somebody who's been doing one type of crime, specializing in one type of crime, often you find it difficult at that late stage to then pivot, get them to pivot to do something else. But that's why we're trying to get that, from aspirant to district court prosecutor to regional court prosecutor, that they get exposed so that we can have a pool and build from that. Yeah. Because it's much more difficult to get somebody who's been doing...
Once they're set in their ways.
At times it's difficult.
Yeah.
Often it's difficult.
So let's conclude it then with a message perhaps from you that captures your understanding of the mood of the country and the thirst for justice around these issues, the sense of, as I was saying earlier on, drawing a line in the sand, this far and no further. What's your message around the fight against corruption to generally South Africans, but perhaps young South Africans who ultimately, are the future custodians of this land, but perhaps some of them even your future prosecutors?
Well, my message, to them is that speak up. Speak up. If you see something wrong, speak up. Active citizenry is important. And when you see something wrong, you need to speak up. And that and if you involve yourself in corruption, we will get to you. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but eventually we will get to you.
Yeah, that is the message.
That's the message.
All right, I've got to thank you. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground, and it's been quite fascinating learning about the work that you do and how it fits in with the rest of the units in the NPA, but even in broader law enforcement. That is Advocate Nkebe Kanyane, who is Special Director of Public Prosecutions, responsible for the Special Commercial Crimes Unit at the National Prosecuting Authority. Do join us next time for another episode of Graft Under Watch.